And really what it means to me is we got to get back to what we call the economic fundamentals. We got to get to the solid foundation of what supports a good real estate investment. And I'm going to talk about why Fort St. John is that. You know, we went up to Fort St. John 2.5 years ago before anybody had even dreamed of Site C Dam being announced, before anybody had really talked about LNG being even a possibility. We were up in Fort St. John, and we were up in Fort St. John because it has a very strong economic foundation that it's built on. And Trevor's going to continue to talk about that as well. So the economic fundamentals of real estate, you've really got 6 steps. You know, it all starts with investment into a region, GDP growth, capital flowing into a region. And if you follow all these steps, 18 months later, you should see a corresponding rise in real estate values. So if you really study these things, it's kind of like it can act almost as a little crystal ball for where real estate's going in any given market. So the big story in Western Canada really is Asia needs resources. So you want to find a high growth real estate market in Western Canada, you go look for what we call a resource-based market. Asia is developing at an incredible rate of speed. There's people that have said, you know, Asia is undergoing the same thing that happened in Western Canada 100 years ago that we called the Industrial Revolution. They're just doing it 4 or 5 times as fast and with 4 or 5 times as many resources. And we're very fortunate in Western Canada because we have everything. There's a great group out there called REIN, the Real Estate Investment Network. By the way, who in the room is a REIN member? A number of you guys in the room. So they call it, and we call it the 4 Fs, food, fuel, fertilizer, and forestry. So you go out and you look for these various things in the market. And in Western Canada, we have all of these. And in Northeast BC especially, we're very fortunate to have all of these, the 4 Fs. And this slide, I keep leaving in my presentations. I know some of you have probably seen it before, but it's so powerful to me that this was a tweet Bill Gates actually put out in a book that he read. And it's China used more cement in the last 3 years than the US used in the entire 20th century. So you actually stop to think about that. It's incredible. The US in the entire 20th century built their entire interstate system. They built all of their skyscrapers. It was a massive amount of concrete. And China's used the same amount of concrete in 3 years. So that really kind of tells you how fast China is developing. It's absolutely incredible. But it has negative consequences, that kind of rate of development. And one of those is coal demand in China. And this graph shows you the US coal consumption versus the Chinese coal consumption. And you can see what they've done since the 2000s. That rate of growth, they've consumed so many more resources. And the cheapest way to fuel an economy is with coal power. And so China's done that. They've massively ramped up their coal consumption. In fact, today, 80% of electricity in China is generated by coal power. And it's got significant consequences. You know, that is a real photo of China. They've compared the coal smogs to the coal smogs of London during the last Industrial Revolution. So one of the big things China is doing today that they've announced in their latest 5-year plan is they want to reduce the amount of coal they're consuming and increase the amount of natural gas they're consuming. And I'll touch on why that's important to us as real estate investors in Northeast BC later. But this is a really interesting slide. I found it the other day. It came out from BP. And it shows you basically the share of energy consumption worldwide. And the really interesting thing you can see here is the only 2 energy types that are rising out to 2035 is renewables and natural gas. Everything else is declining. So that's very, very important for us in Northeast BC when I get to the growth that's happening in the market. And China is a big part of this. You know, China is really trying to get off the reliance of coal, so is the US, and they need to replace it with something. They can't replace it with wind because it's not reliable. They don't want to replace it with nuclear because of Fukushima in Japan. We all see what can happen with nuclear. So natural gas is the cleanest, most reliable fuel that they can use for that.